actually not even familiar with this genus, but it's named after Saunders' favorite cheese. Longwood Gardens has no shortage of show-stopping displays, but tucked away by the newly designed West Conservatory is something truly one of a kind. It's the only North American design by legendary Brazilian landscape architect Roberto Burle Marx. Now, first commissioned in 1989, the Cascade Garden was carefully reconstructed stone by stone and plant by plant between 2021 and 2024. Now today, we'll step inside with longtime caretaker Joyce Rondinella, who shares its rare aroids, bright bromeliads, plants straight from Burle Marx's home in Brazil, and the remarkable story of how this living artwork was painstakingly preserved.
Well, Summer, it's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be back.
You picked a beautiful day to come to Longwood Gardens. I mean, the sun is shining. For many years, almost 20, I was a senior horticulturalist, and I was in charge of this. I had the privilege and the pleasure of taking care of the Cascade Garden.
Saw the Cascade Garden the last time we were here.
Well, I kind of call it our hidden gem. A lot of our guests remember it at the very end of the Fern Passage on the west end of the conservatory. And then when all this planning started, you know, we're going to, you know, do Longwood Reimagined and build new greenhouses. It was like the question came up, what are we going to do with this Cascade Garden? Because it was designed by Roberto Burle Marx, who, as you know, and there's many things written about him, is a very famous landscape architect.
Indeed. And some plants are actually named after him. So a lot of houseplant enthusiasts will know the Burle Marx name, but they may not know and connect it with the gentleman behind it.
And he was, I mean, anybody that studied landscape architecture or is a plantsman, I mean, you can't help but admire this man. He was, you know, an environmentalist before environmentalism was cool. He was doing green walls. And he had a love for plants, the environment. He was an advocate. He spoke out about saving the rainforest.
Right, because he's Brazilian.
He's from Brazil.
He has Brazilian roots.
Yes.
And so what was it about this Cascade Garden? Because there's something special about it in the sense that, is this the one that's remaining that he's designed in the U.S.? Or tell me a bit about the history.
Well, we were really fortunate. Back in the late 80s, Longwood commissioned him to design a garden here at Longwood Gardens. We also have to mention Conrad Hammerman, who was his colleague, who was a landscape architect from Philadelphia, and they were friends since the 50s. So in the late 80s, they brought him here. He walked around. They decided, okay, we're going to redo this. It was like a cool house. It was our desert house.
Oh,
and they thought, this is a good spot because he, you know, walked down the Fern Passage, and he wanted it to be like what he called the crescendo, because he was also a musician.
Right.
We commissioned him, and we were so lucky to have him. The garden opened in January of 1992, after a few years of planning. It was a collaboration. Longwood, we're fortunate. We have a great facilities department. We have masons, we have carpenters. They built it, and then he came and worked with my predecessor, which was Rolf Smith, who took care of the garden for the first, 15 years, and then I came in and took care of it since 2021 when we dismantled it.
Yeah.
So a lot of planning was going on before, and to have him come here so late in his career, because he had designed over 2,000 public and private gardens.
And he's like, oh, my last hurrah.
Yeah, literally, he was in his, mid-80s,
Yeah.
and he would come here and he visited and, kind of told where the plants should be. And
so he envisioned the pillars and the stone, or how did you interpret this afterwards?
He was an artist,
Yeah.
and how could you not be inspired by the Brazilian landscape?
Right.
And it's funny because it took him to go to Germany to study art to come back and say, wow, I have this
Rich culture.
Yeah, and he was
history.
like, there he started bringing them into public areas, into public parks. And then, so he's like, we have this flora and we have to save it. So he was like an advocate for saving the environment. Even though as much as I love aroids and bromeliads, two of my favorite, it's a big plant palette in here. But it's also an opportunity, I think, to really talk about design. This really is his design aesthetic. And you walk in and it's almost like it was.
Now, how do you describe his design? Like, what is it about his design that makes it Burle Marx, that has the Burle Marx stamp?
It has all the elements, all the natural elements. So his design and aesthetic was inspired by nature, bold textures, tropical foliage. So it's very curvilinear.
I think about like even his landscapes. They're curved, but they're geometric, but curved in a weird way. They're like a bold curve.
Bold curve.
Yeah.
Bold textures. Also, the elements. All of his gardens really have that vertical accent. And that vertical accent, I'll bring a student or a guest in here and I'll say, notice the vertical accents. So you have them it's kind of like tree trunks. So you could have your epiphytic and your semi-epiphytic plants growing on them. It's a perfect environment. Also, what he coined as the earthen walls, which is concrete mixed with vermiculite in them.
Okay, interesting.
So earthen walls, and then the water feature, and of course a lot of rock. And all this rock in here was Pennsylvania quarry and media, this mica. And down to every detail, when they were putting it together, they would look at how the rock should be placed. A lot of its vertical accents.
Right.
When we were dismantling it, we literally came in here with a 3D laser. All of these were numbered and taken out and cleaned so they could be put back. And if you were here before and come after, it's like, I knew exactly where that rock was. And it's amazing that they are where they were.
Now, you renovated, you were very meticulous with the rocks, putting them back into place. How did the plants change? Like, what was he very specific on the palette of the plants and the type of plants in here?
He was very specific, and we have kept that design intent since the 1993 when it opened in January of 93. And he was a plantsman. And as a gardener, we could appreciate that because he was smart enough to put, the aechmeas that like the sunshine, up in the sunny wall. And, the aechmea, the big Blanchetiana up there, like in the sunshine. The understory plants, he would put down low. So we have right now, about 135 what we call accessions in here. And about 60 or more of them were the original. So a lot of these were from the 90s, which is, a testament to these plants are pretty tough. A lot of these big aroids that you see were the big aroids that were here.
Interesting.
We literally pried them off the walls because there's, how the bromeliads and the aroids grow and they kind of attach themselves. We literally took them off and we had a growing house across the street. We kind of made these faux of tree fern fiber and sphagnum moss and kept them in there for almost 3 years. We took it down in 2021. So what you're seeing is kind of pretty cool because this garden, it's just going to be a year planted in October.
Yeah, it's amazing to have to move it for 3 years and to say, it might have slightly different lighting conditions, might be, you had to pry it off the wall, so some of the roots probably, although like you said, they're very resilient and you could take a cutting very easily and whatnot.
They were resilient, but I was trying to take big cuttings, big chunks. And that's what and they did very well. We had them shaded over there. We kept them, humidity. And a lot of these, obviously, South America, tropical plants.
What's that big guy right up there? It looks like almost
it's a big philodendron. That was there.
Looks like a rhubarb.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's meaty.
That's from 1992. Yeah, so that was one of the originals, which I took care of it when it was almost 30 years old. So as a gardener, how wear and tear with water and heat and fertilizer. The mist system, there is a mist system in here.
I was going to ask how do you irrigate this or is it just misted or?
Well, there's a mist system and if it goes below about 70%, the mist system will come on. Our other mist system, it was getting old, it'd be clogged up, but now we have a brand new MEFOG system. We have it on a timer, so between 11 and 5, when that humidity drops below 70, it mists. So you have this nice rainforest fog.
Yeah.
The same way we had the opportunity to, now there's shade cloths. So, as soon as the sun gets too bright, because these are all understory.
Well, is this a shade cloth or is it just tinted?
Both.
It's both. Wow.
It's
so
both.
Does an automatic shade cloth come down?
It
or?
does.
Oh,
Automatic, right between 11 and 5, the brightest time of the day. We have the parameter set. It'll read if it gets too sunny and too bright, the shade will come down, and it kind of cools it off. And the glass is also tinted, which, because when they were redesigning it, I'm like, oh, my biggest concern. I said, I want mist and I want shade.
Yeah.
And as you can see, the plants didn't miss a beat, so they love it here.
This is a seed pod.
It's a seed. It's a fertilized seed. It's off Anthurium bakeri up here, which I used to, I see these growing. I'd have in my back growing house. I'd have I called it my Anthurium farm.
Yeah.
And which I'm glad I did because I used a lot of these. These are seeds from seed grown from the original. So we could fill up the culm because I knew the culms were going to be bigger. So I planned ahead. But the cool thing about these, and maybe your followers would, an Anthurium, you could sow it fresh. It doesn't need any dormancy.
Oh, so you don't even have to take the fleshy part off.
Right. I kind of just take it. I mean, look at this. You just kind of go like this.
Yeah.
You put these in a little bit of soil and keep them moist. And the little
pocket. Put them in my pocket.
The little tiny anthuriums that come up, those first, they are like the cutest things.
Yeah.
They're like little babies. But so you don't need a cold period on anthuriums. They're easy to grow from seed. And look at,
they look like, when I was back there and looking up at it, it looked like just ornaments at Christmas. Like in a Brazilian
great.
Christmas.
And this is a lot of ripe seed up there.
Yeah.
And that acme up there is a really good grower.
Yeah. Now, are you growing the plants in this coir fabric, or what is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a basket over here I can show you.
Sure.
What we do, because we wanted, he always said, it's like an earthen lawn. The plants eventually will attach. Now, after 30 years, some of these acmeas literally were attached. I'm yanking them off. They do eventually grow into the wall. They want to root into the wall. And as the the pups or the offshoots, I call them jump out of the basket, the more vigorous growers will attach themselves to the wall.
And the wall meaning not only the coir baskets, but the actual vermiculite.
Yeah, and tree.
Because it almost feels like a little crumbly,
yes,
tufa almost.
We wanted that texture, so after they did the concrete, and the vermiculite. They actually made this slurry and put some bronze tone paint in there because we wanted it to, you know, mimic
color.
Earth and wall. But I could show you one of our baskets.
Yeah.
I have one pulled here. We have a great metal shop here. Our guys are amazing here in facilities. I could tell them, hey, you know, Dave, could you make me a 6-inch, a 4-inch, a 10-inch basket?
Flat basket with
flat basket. I mean, that's stainless steel. And then we buy in this cocoa liner. And the cocoa liner, you know how it comes in really tan?
Tan,
We have to bronze tone paint it, and then we kind of upholster it on here.
She gives it a spray tan.
We give it, just so it kind of blends in. We don't want the basket to...
The Brazilian spray tan.
Yes, we wanted that Brazilian tan.
Yeah.
And these have worked great because a lot of the stuff is permanent in here, but you know from being at Longwood in the past, a lot of stuff gets changed out.
That's true. Yeah, this is actually quite different because when we traveled with Carl Gersons through the conservatory, things get taken out, but you're saying some of these are like 30 years old.
Some of them stay, but as you know, bromeliads are monocarpic. They bloom once and they're done. So a lot of them have to get changed out. So that's where this comes in really handy. That we could say, okay, that Varesia, that Aikmia it's bloomed, it's done. We could swap it out. Now,
how do you attach these to the wall? You just hang them on this, on like a nail?
Yes, what we do, so this is all stainless steel.
You see this?
We have stainless steel eye hooks.
Yep.
And we use an S hook, and we hook it on the wall. I could take one off here for you. So we have an S hook and an eye hook, and I'll probably get bromeliad water on me,
But that's really the mist system that's where the water is coming from, right?
Well, the mist system is really just for the humidity.
Oh, I see, okay.
So to keep that, they love humidity.
Yeah.
As much as, you know, a lot of times we don't like it. These plants obviously love it. People are surprised when they hear, and you've heard this before here, that we hand water almost everything.
Yeah.
So we are watering every day, depending on, I always tell gardeners, water by the weather. If it's humid and overcast in the summer, they are not transpiring, so they don't need that much water. So the mist system is for the humidity, and then as things dry out, a lot of times in the winter, when the heat comes on, we have this set usually right around 66 degrees, because the other thing that we did when we preserved it was an opportunity for us to fix the root zone heating that was kind of starting to fail.
So tell us about some of the plants that we're seeing here too.
Roberto's palette was mostly either bromeliads or aroids. Bromeliads, which we all know, that's the pineapple family. And we do have a few that are actually, you know, species. There are 16 accepted species that were named with his, you know, Burle Marx'S in there.
I was even going to say the cultivar, the philodendron Burle Marx fantasy, to put the ones in there that he
yes,
the cultivar names.
The ones, people think, oh, this is cool. He was a great, you know, tropical guy. But
then you have the Neregelia Burle Marx'S.
Yes,
So.
and that one was one of the ones that's been here since the 90s. Like, you know, because it's what I call a prolific pupper.
Yeah.
So it's a good grower. And I always tell like people that are starting in bromeliads, it's such a big family, and just when you get a big family, you get a lot of that diversity. So people are like, oh, well, you know, does it want shade or does it want sun? You know, so like you have to, if you have a genus, you'll know. Okay, Neos can take full sun, Neovigilias and Aikmias. But then I always Bromeliad ID 101, when students are learning, it's like you feel the margins. Is it a smooth margin, or is it like to have the little teeth? And you can usually get it down to a familiar genus by doing that. And a lot of times, not always, because you know horticulture doesn't, you know, it always breaks the rules.
It does.
A lot of times the softer one could take lower light, because the Varesias, they like low light, the Guzmanias, which are really popular.
I'm actually not even familiar with this genus, but it's named after Saunders' favorite cheese.
There you go. Well, once again, we have to keep the taxonomists, you know, employed. So it was this
keep the taxonomists employed.
Exactly, so they can, you know, challenge us. You know, we learned that. I learned that as Varesia.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yes, the same way with
So they started splitting them up into different.
Yeah, you have your clumpers and your
genera.
splitters. But this one, this is Roberto Burle Marx's signature plant. He has it in almost all of his gardens.
This seems to be like a quintessential Brazilian plant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this Alcantara, which used to be Variesia, this is a spectacular, slow-growing, long-lived. It'll take like 7 to 10 years for it to shoot up this beautiful spike. And he has this in all of his gardens.
And people love that blue color, that kind of verdigris color on this.
Yes. Plants were living architecture to him. And some of these plants are structural, architectural statement in themselves. And this is a really good example of that. Because he doesn't want them all smushed together. I try to separate them as they grow. Maybe I'll thin 1 or 2 out. So it really stands alone. And you see how we have this whole sweep of those. This is, if you would have come here in '92 when he was placing the plants, that's how they were placed.
Right.
The same way, you know, with the anthuriums, which I love. That big Anthurium ploumanii has been here since the '90s. And if that gets too, you know, grown together, I will kind of separate them a little bit.
Right.
Because they could be moved around, you know, stay in the same spot, but moved and thinned, so they kind of...
I love how you also strewn all the little peperomia and canna, which is something that I wouldn't have pictured it as a total understory plant, but it's growing so well in the understory here, just knitted throughout.
It loves, it loves the shade, and that was another original. You know, obviously it's from Brazil, so...
Yeah.
A few, like the main palette, like we said, was the bromeliads, but there's like a few things that are dotted in, like the peperomia, like our ceiba tree, which...
This is great, by the way. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
This is just like you want to go out and grab
yeah,
it.
you do. But then but Hohenbergia has those nasty little spines on the margins. But yeah, he liked Hohenbergia, so we, you know, got the newer version. A lot of the cultivars and the species that we were getting in the, as you know, and getting in the '90s, you couldn't always get them. So I would shop around, you know, talk to the growers, go to the Bromeliad Society, you know, go to the and find, okay, if we can't get that species, we have to get something very similar. But a couple other things, the Clusia was here. Actually, that came from his garden. That's a native to Brazil.
It came from Burle Marx's garden?
Yes, there's 2 plants. The Schwartzia vine, that's another one up by the Tudlandia wall. The Clusia is a cutting from his garden, and so is the Schwartzia vine, which is up there, which is finding its way across the top of the wall up there. The other plant that's really cool that kind of like people always stop and say, wow, what's that? It's the ceiba, this is a cutting, and this was a little tricky to get this to propagate because we wanted as many original plants to save.
This one.
Yes, that one right there.
And does it
ceiba.
flower for you here in here?
You know what? That's funny you asked that, Summer, because when we know there's like 3 or 4 inches of snow coming, we have to crank up the heat. And it's funny because
it's interesting because snow sometimes is an insulator.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't want the glass roofs to cave in.
Yeah.
So everywhere throughout the garden we have this rolling. We turn on one greenhouse and then we let the boiler room know, crank up the boilers. We got to melt the snow off the roof. So one winter when it was a really snowy winter, we had to really crank the heat in here. And normally I'd be keeping it a little bit cooler. Well, it bloomed.
It bloomed when you brought the heat up.
When we brought the heat up in the winter.
Ah, fascinating.
Because our winter was at summer.
It's
Think
summer,
about
yeah.
it. You have to flip it all.
It's split.
So it split, and I was like, I waited all these years for this. One of those.
Well, you wouldn't have known if it didn't snow that
Right.
much. Like you had to, raise the temperature and like pretend that it was really summer in Brazil.
Yeah, and it was a white flower, and it was, like a mallow,
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. But it did bloom for us. And then when we knew we were going to take it down, it's for such a, you would think like kind of a weedy tree. It wasn't easy to propagate. We tried air layering. We tried cuttings from older growth. And finally, just the new growth at the right time of the year, we got it to propagate. And then we grew on a couple, and then made sure we got the right form. That we wanted, and then I went over and that's the one that we got to put back there, and that's the one there. But it was funny when we were taking it down, I could see like the panic in like some people's eyes, you know, like, oh, you know, we're taking it down. And I'm like, okay, you got the 3D laser, you know where every rock goes, you know where the water features go. And they were like, where's the planting plan? Where's the planting? I'm like, I got the plants. You know, like I've watched these plants grow for almost 20 years. It's like, I could just
you
say,
have this like photographic memory.
I could just say, this one went there and they ended up there. And it was,
this is really nice.
Yes, Cinco, the Burgundy. He liked that really spiky. And this, as you come down here, you kind of get into that. Whereas you see that
it starts getting a little bit more the deserty vibe, you know.
But a negative space.
Yeah.
And now I know you're doing botanical tours summer. You know, maybe you should, you know, go visit his garden, which is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site outside of Rio, which I had the pleasure of visiting. And I went there and I was just like, oh.
Never got to meet him.
No, sadly, I never got to meet him, but my predecessor, Rolf, who took care of the garden, was here, and Sharon, who's also still here. I did meet him and did work with him. I did get to meet Conrad Hammerman. He came around and walked with me, and I said, is this what he envisioned? And he's like, yes, absolutely. And, you know, he would let the garden, like, he used to say, let the ferns spore in, you know, which I could see it now, only after a year. You can see the ferns.
There's ferns popping up.
The ferns are starting to pop in. You know, the maiden hairs, and I have to love this Critomia, this holly fern here. I used to call it the canary in the cave because in the old garden, when like I said, it was starting to deteriorate. And obviously you have these steam heat pipes underneath the ground. If I'd come in the morning, I could smell a steam leak. And I can also, if that was like flat wilting to the ground, I'm like, oh, put the soil thermometer in. I had a steam leak.
Interesting.
So it's about observation. You know something's wrong, and almost the plants are telling me, yes, something's wrong.
It's really nice to see that he found a relatively local stone that he could work with, like the micaceous thing you said from Media, PA. I mean, it's a very striking stone, actually, that I'm looking at it. It's very shiny, too.
Yeah, and like I said, they were very particular. And his garden, like you asked about his design aesthetic, a lot of it is light and shadow. And at certain times of the day, you know, the light will catch, you know, that little bit of a schist that's in there, and that mica. And then there's some rose quartz, you know, which who doesn't love rose quartz?
Yeah, it's really pretty.
It's beautiful when that catches the light. And those stones, for the most part, were put back. He always had them on that corner there. And these, you know, vertical accents with the ceiba tree and the vertical accents of these stones. We literally...
I mean, I'd imagine he'd have to go and pick each stone because you have to place it, and it was very deliberate on which ones you're putting where.
And it was very deliberate on how they went back.
Yeah.
You know, it took us like 8 hours one Saturday to, you know, with 3 stonemasons in here trying to get this, you know, looking at the images and saying, no, we want this over 2 inches. So everything was kind of how he put it. This Brasilia puntia, which used to be just Opuntia brasiliensis. Those little spines are nasty, but this was cuttings from the original. So eventually, when I was taking this down, a few years before I took it down, they were really high.
Oh.
They were nice trunks. Yeah. But they'll grow, you know, we're kind of training them. We always grow extra. And then I'm like, okay, let's pick the ones with the straightest trunks.
Right.
And for that vertical accent. If you go to visit his garden, I mean, he has vertical plant everywhere. You know, it's like up on walls. It's like, and people, you know, and we call it green roofs. I'm like,
well, we see that the Hoya carrier.
I knew you would see that Hoya. Yeah, there's 2 Hoyas in here actually. Also, with his aroids, a lot of them they're not really dissected. Like there's such a variable family. You know, you have your dissected, you have you know the really cut leaf. You know, there's not many of those in here. He kind of wanted those big leaves with that.
The big leaves that don't really start to get the fenestrations.
Exactly.
Look at this. This is just
amazing. And you could see if you know verrucosum. And you know gloriosum.
Is this a hybrid though?
That is a hybrid.
Yeah, I was going to say this is. Yeah. Okay. Oh, so it's a gloriosum and verrucosum.
Yes.
I could see both of the resemblance.
Yes.
Of it.
Isn't that like marry the two?
But it has the hybrid vigor.
You got to love that hybrid vigor.
Yeah.
And we do have a verrucosum kind of tucked away. I tried to protect
I see it
in
back
the shade.
There, yeah.
Because, you know, we all love that really fuzzy
That's the thing, you could tuck away quite a lot of plants in here and have multi-layers like you do.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Here's a monstera.
And you know, like after you watch it, it's like, oh, this one could take the shade. You know, it's on like the north side. Whereas those bigger baskets, those are like 10 inches across in the back.
I mean, look how tall they are. I mean, this is really hard to appreciate, but like, you know, it's because they're so high up. Like, I think that if I took that down, it would be up to my shoulder.
Yeah,
it would definitely be over encompassing you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I need a big ladder, or we can actually now with this. The other thing that's great, we could drive a lift in here because I was always hairy getting up at the top of those with the ladder. But now we have a lift that fits in here. We drive it up, boom, put it on. It's
that is
great.
Perfect.
Yeah, but those Blanchettianas, they're tough. They last a long time.
Well, this is really interesting. It kind of gives us a nice sense of how this was. I mean, obviously, it was very dictated with the design, but even how you execute his vision and see how the plants interact with the type of substrate that you're giving it. It's very inspirational because a lot of folks, and the vertical nature of it, because a lot of folks who love plants, especially if they're just growing them indoors or in a greenhouse, they soon run out of space.
Yes.
And they start looking at the walls.
Go vertical.
Yeah, exactly.
Go vertical. And then if you're learning, if you're new to aroids, if you're, you know, a new aroid enthusiastic person, you know, a lot of people jumped on that craze. You know which ones are what I call like the bird nest type versus the viners, you know.
Yeah.
Because some people want to grow monstera.
That's true.
In their house, and I'm like, oh, that thing is going to be about 20 feet tall.
Right.
You know?
Or if you decide to do bird's nest, you're going to have to walk around it after a while.
Exactly. Well, that Plumania is the biggest one we have. There's a few other bird's nest type that'll stay a little smaller, you know, be a little bit more contained. But yeah, it's like just because it's such a, you know, like this, you know, you have the big Plumanii and then you have the Jananii, which this has always stayed this size, you know, much more, you know,
acceptable.
In a home, if you can find it. A lot of these have been here for a long time.
Right.
So as you see, we have many Tillandsias or airplants, the largest genus in the Bromeliad family. So there's lots of variation. You can get little teeny weeny ones and really, really big ones. And people, because their common name is Airplant, they think, oh, they're just so easy. How many have we killed?
Oh, plenty, plenty.
We've all killed airplants at home.
I found bringing them outdoors now and hanging them in my trees.
They love it.
They love it. They prolong it, and then I have to bring them back in, and
then they struggle.
Yeah, they struggle, but then the spring is back. You know.
Yes, and then they're like, "Yay, I'm outside!" And I think that has a lot to do with the air circulation.
Yeah.
And that was another thing with this higher roof.
This has quite a lot of air circulation.
It has.
You feel the air movement.
They love the air circulation because this door, which most of these are right now on here are just different forms of Ionantha. This one, it takes about 350 plants, believe it or not. And this door,
I love that she knows that.
You would think 350, 375. You would think that, oh, this is just always here. Well, guess what? It's about every 4 or 5, maybe I could stretch it 6 months. We need change-outs. It's kind of like not getting enough air circulation.
I see, yeah,
the ones
it's tucked
up
away
high,
in there.
Like that'll last so much longer. It's tucked away, and then all that mechanical damage because that's
you're moving it, you know.
We're moving it, but we will wire the at the base.
I see.
And then we take.
Oh, interesting.
We wire them on. And then we take we call this a fern pin from the floral industry, and without stabbing the base of the plant, we kind of just tuck it in, and then that keeps it pretty tight. When they get loose, we can come back and fix it.
Oh, you're giving people ideas.
Yes, and you could do this at home because this on here is like a core, like a tree fern fiber. It's pressed together, and you can, you know, get sheets of that. They mount orchids to it.
Yeah.
And
it feels very Flintstone-y, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's funny. When we're in here working and we pop out, we scare guests. You know, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that was a real door." Oh, yeah.
The best is if you just dressed up as a giant Tillandsia and you just came out.
We've done that. Put the Spanish moss down over our hard hats. You know.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much for this exquisite tour, and it's nice to know that this is really the only existing Burle Marx exhibit, right, in the United States?
That's another thing that's really special about this garden. Yeah. Like I said, he's designed over 2,000 public, private places, but in the United States, this is it.
If you are in the U.S. and you don't go anywhere else, this is maybe the only chance that you get to see it, and of course on the channel. So thank you so much for sharing this with us, and we could honestly see that you're so enthusiastic about this and that you know it in and out as well. So that was just really nice.
Thank you so much for coming, and make sure you go down to Brazil and visit his garden.
Oh, I know, you're giving me an excuse. Rio.
Go to Rio.
Rio edition.
There you go.
We have some more phenomenal plant-centric tours through Longwood Gardens, so stay tuned here on Plant One On Me, and also on our sister channel at Flock Finger Lakes, where we'll be exploring their farm-to-table garden and taste testing the chef's creations. Now, if you're interested in going on a Plant One On Me style tour with other plant-loving people, you could check out our group botanical tours that we do every year, including Costa Rica, Thailand, and now Japan. You can reserve your spot before the trip fills up by visiting homesteadbrooklyn.com, clicking on the Learn tab, and then go to Botanical Tours for more information. Or just visit the link in the description below this video. We'll see you in the next video.